Hi, and welcome back to Diary of a Barrister. I'm Chelsea Brookwood, your host, employment barrister at Park Square Barristers, and I'm so glad you're here today because we're tackling something that I know keeps a lot of you awake at night. Work experience, legal work experience, specifically how on earth you're supposed to get legal work experience, when every route in seems to demand that you already have some experience. It's like banging your head against a wall, isn't it? And if you've ever felt that frustration, that horrible circular trap where you need to get experience and you can't get experience because you don't have any yet, then this episode is for you. Because I want to tell you something that I wish somebody had me right at the start. That trap is not as solid as it looks. It only holds the people who stand outside it waiting for permission. And by the end of this hour, you're going to walk away with a whole toolkit of practical, concrete ways to get real experience starting this week. Some of them completely free, some of them that you might have to pay for, and all of them available right now. So whoever you are and wherever you're starting from, this episode is for you. We're going to talk about walking into court and watching real trials for free, no permission, no application. We're going to talk about a route almost nobody mentions, temping agencies, legal temping agencies, which can pay you to build the exact experience that chambers and firms are wanting to see. And we're going to talk about mini-pupillages, marshalling, pro bono work, and then crucially, we're going to talk about how to turn all of that experience into something that actually wins you. Pupillage, mini-pupillage, so on and so forth. Because getting the experience is only half the job, and I get that. So settle in, grab a pen if you can, because I want you leaving this episode with a list of things to actually do and actually do them. So let's get into it. Let's start by looking the problem dead in the eye, because I don't want to pretend it isn't real. The catch-22 is real. You look at pupillage and you look at training contracts, and the applicants who get in seem to have all this experience already, and you look at how to get that experience, and so many of the opportunities seem to want people who've already done something similar. Or at least it feels that way. And it feels like a locked room where the key is inside the room. And I get it. I stood exactly where you're standing. I know how hard it is. And I know that catch-22 feeling like banging your head against a wall. But here's the reframe that changes everything. And I need you to really take this in. Legal experience is not a thing that other people give you permission to have. It is a thing you go out and gather yourself, and having that initiative is what sets you apart from the people that are just waiting for that permission. We've been sold this idea that you have to be selected, you have to be chosen, you have to be let in, that experience is handed down from on high to the worthy few. And for some of it, sure, there's an application, there's a selection process, but a huge amount of genuinely valuable legal experience, there is no gatekeeper at all. You just have to have the knowledge and the motivation and most of all the discipline to go out there and get it yourself. Nobody is standing at the door of the public gallery checking whether you're good enough to come in and observe the public hearings. Nobody is stopping you from signing up to a temping agency. They're not bothered if you have experience. They want you for a very short period of time. They don't want to have to train you. They don't want to have to keep you. They just want you to fill a short stint of time whilst they have somebody off on maternity leave or whilst they have somebody off on sick leave. And it's such an easy way in. Nobody is preventing you from volunteering your time to people who desperately need legal help. The door is open, and it always has been most of the time. Now, most people just never try the handle because they're waiting for someone to invite them in, and the invitation never comes because that's not how it works. And so they end up in this catch position where they have nothing to talk about in applications because they feel like they don't have any legal work experience. And there are countless things that they could have done instead. And there are people that are doing those other things instead, and that stands them apart by a mile. The people who get to the bar, the people who get training contracts, so often are not the ones with the most connections or the poshest background or the luckiest break. They're the ones who understood early on that they had to build their own way in, who stopped waiting to be picked and picked themselves. That is a mindset before it's a method. And I want to plant it in you right at the start of this episode, because every practical thing I'm about to tell you depends on it. You have to believe that you're allowed to start, that you don't need anyone's blessing, that the responsibility for your experience sits with you and nobody else. That's not a burden. It is actually freedom. And it means you're not at the mercy of a legal system deciding whether to let you in or not. It means you can start to, and let me say something to those who feel behind. Maybe you're a career changer. Maybe you're a mature student like I was. Maybe you didn't do a law degree, or you didn't go to university with a career service that hands you opportunities on a plate, or you don't know a single goddamn person who works in law. I see you. I hear you. And I want you to hear this clearly. None of that disqualifies you. The routes I'm about to give you don't care where you came from, don't care what you look like, don't care what you sound like. The public gallery does not check your background. The temping agencies want somebody reliable, somebody that turns up, not someone posh. This is genuinely one of the most level parts of the whole journey. If you're willing to go out and take the opportunities and find the opportunities and put the effort in. So let's talk about how. And I'm going to start with my favourite because it's free. It's available to almost everybody listening, and it's ridiculously underused. Go to court. Just walk in and pick a courtroom and watch. Here's something that a surprising number of aspiring barristers don't know. Our courts are, with a few exceptions, like everything in law, open to the public. That's a fundamental principle in our justice system, that justice is done in open where anyone can see it, which means you, right now, today, can go to your local Crown Court, your local Magistrates Court, your local County Court, walk in, go through security, speak to a clerk or an usher and ask them which might be good to see. Go down and sit in the public gallery and watch real cases be argued by real barristers. You do not need to book, you do not need to apply, you do not need to interview, you do not need permission. You don't need to know anyone. You just turn up. The amount of people that say to me, I can't get a mini-pupillage, I'm really struggling to get a mini-pupillage, that haven't actually just gone down and sat in the public gallery is mind-blowing to me. It is wild. And it is one of the few genuinely open doors in this entire profession, and it's sitting there waiting for you and nobody uses it. And people come with this victim mentality of, like, yeah, I'm really struggling, I can't get it. But then they don't use their initiative and just go down and sit in the public gallery. And that is worse than not having any experience at all, because we expect people that haven't had the opportunity to get the experience yet to be going down and getting the experience that they don't need permission for. And I cannot overstate how valuable it is. You will learn more about advocacy in 1 hour of watching a real trial than in a week of reading about it in a textbook. Because advocacy is a live, human, performed thing, and you have to see it to understand it. And sometimes going and watching two different barristers without being on one side like you would be on a mini-pupillage gives you that objective view so that you can actually look and understand and see what is good from an unbiased perspective. And so sometimes just going down and sitting in the courts actually gives you a better understanding than you would get through a mini-pupillage. You watch how barristers structure their questions. You watch how they handle a witness who won't give them a straight answer. You watch how they speak to the judge. You watch the register they use, the pace they use, the pauses they use. And you watch what happens when someone is well prepared. And you can also see what happens when they're not. sometimes. And believe me, you can tell. You start to absorb almost osmosis what good actually looks like in terms of advocacy, what it sounds like. That's an education you simply cannot buy, and it is free and underused. The more that you are in and around the profession, the more your face is seen, the more familiar you are to people on circuit, the more that they will recognise you. And when you get to an interview stage and they've already seen you in and around court, you have that familiarity that other people in the interview queue may not have. And that really, I cannot stress enough how important it is to set you apart from the others. So let me give you some really practical guidance on how to do this well, because I want you to actually go and do it, not just nod along, listen to this and be like, yeah, I'm going to do it tomorrow. First, find your local court. A quick search will tell you where your nearest one is. Crown Court, Magistrates Court, County Court, whatever. And you can often find court listings online on www.courtserve.co.uk. And that tells you what's been heard that day at what time. So you can pick something that might interest you, that sounds interesting. Crown Court tends to be the more serious criminal cases with the wigs and the gowns and drama you might picture. The Magistrates is faster, higher volume, so it's a bit of more of a conveyor belt type system, but both are worth seeing, particularly if you're interested in crime. And second, just turn up, dress smart, because you want to respect the space and not draw attention, and you never know who you might bump into. Arrive with time to get through security, because you will be checked, you have your bag checked, etc. And be prepared to be quiet and switch your phone off. Find the public gallery, speak to a court clerk or a court usher if you're unsure, sit down and watch. If a case finishes, you can often move to another courtroom and catch something else. And you can spend as long as you want there in terms of the court's opening hours. And you can easily fill a whole day, because the court does. But here's the part that turns a nice day into a genuine application-worthy experience. And this is where most people fall down. You have to reflect on what you saw. Take a notebook. During or straight after, write down what you observed. What did the advocate do that worked? What would you have done differently? How did they open? How did they handle a difficult moment? What was the difficult moment? What did the judge respond to? Because when it comes to your application 1, 2, 3, 4 years down the line, or your interview, it's not remotely impressive to say, I went and watched a trial. Everyone can say that, whether it's true or not. What's impressive is to say, I watched a cross-examination where the advocate completely dismantled a witness's account by doing X, and it taught me Y about the importance of Z. That specificity, that reflection, that evidence of thinking, mind actually engaging with what it actually saw is what turns a free afternoon into pure application gold. So don't just watch. Watch, reflect, write it down, bank it. The watching is the experience, the reflecting is what makes it count, and journaling is what makes you remember when the application stages come around. Now, I want to talk about something that almost nobody mentions as well when they're talking about getting into law and getting legal work experience, and I genuinely don't understand why. It is one of the things that I really knuckled down with and exploited to my advantage. Because, quite frankly, I think it's one of the cleverest routes there is. Temping agencies. Here's the idea. They are recruitment agencies that specialise in placing people into temporary legal roles. Paralegal work, legal administrative work, legal secretarial work, court clerking, documents review, all sorts of legal work experience for a short period of time. And here is why this is so powerful for someone in your position. Remember the catch-22 that you need experience to get experience. Temping smashes straight through that, because these agencies will place you into real legal environments doing real legal work, and this is the crucial part. They also pay you for it. Now, you are not begging for an unpaid opportunity. You are being hired and paid to gain exactly the kind of experience that chambers and firms want to see on your CV. And think about what that solves at once. So many aspiring barristers and solicitors are caught between the needing to earn money to survive and the needing to build experience to progress. And those two things often feel like they're in competition. Like every hour you spend earning is an hour you're not spending building your legal career. Now, temping collapses that tension because you kill two birds with one stone. The earning and the building become the same activity. You're paying your rent and you're building your CV in the same hours. And for those of you without a financial safety net, like me, and I know how enormous that burden is, it means you don't have to choose between eating and getting the experience. You can do both at the same time in the same job. And it's not just about the line on your CV, though, that matters. Temping puts you inside the system. You're in firms, in offices, sometimes in court. You're making those connections. You're meeting solicitors. You're meeting clerks and other legal professionals. You're seeing how legal work actually gets done in the day-to-day, the unglamorous reality of it, which is honestly one of the most useful things you can understand before you commit your life to this. You learn how to case file. You learn how to manage a file. You learn the rhythm of a legal workplace. You build relationships with people who down the line become references or contacts, or a person who mentions you and provides an opportunity to you. You are inside instead of outside looking in, and being inside changes everything. And you don't need experience to get onto a temping agency's list. And so that, as I say, smashes straight through the catch-22 position of needing experience to get experience. All you need to do is put your name down. So how do you actually do this? Look for recruitment agencies that specialise in legal roles, and there are several well-known ones. A quick search will bring them up. Register with them, get your CV into a decent state first, and don't put off if it feels thin, because temping is often the very thing that thickens it. So be clear with them about what you're looking for and that you're keen to get into legal environments. And then when the opportunity comes, say yes. Do everything that you can to make sure that you are on that list, being put before that firm. Say yes to things that just feel a bit junior. Say yes to the admin role, the short placement, the thing that isn't glamorous, because that all builds. Every one of those roles is you inside a legal workplace, being paid, gathering experience and getting closer. Don't, punch above your station at this stage. We're building experience. The role that feels small is a door, and the door leads somewhere, okay? Now, I know people who started clerking or doing legal admin through agencies and used it as the foundation of everything that came after. I am one of them. Don't dismiss it because it isn't the wig and gown yet. Don't dismiss it because it isn't the legal 500 top 10 firm. It's a way in that actually pays you, and that's quite rare, so take it. Let's talk about mini-pupillages, because these are one of the most valuable things you can have on a pupillage application, at least. And on a training contract application, there might be a question as to why you want to be a solicitor instead of a barrister. Why do you want to be a barrister instead of a solicitor? And they deserve real attention. Mini-pupillage is essentially a short period, usually about 3 days, spent in a set of chambers shadowing a barrister, watching them work, sitting in on conferences and going to court with them. It is the closest look you will get at actual life of a barrister before you're doing the job yourself. And that cuts both ways, which is part of why it's so valuable. It shows you the reality of practice, so you can find out whether you actually want this life and which areas of it appeal to you. And it shows chambers something about you too, that you've taken the trouble to understand what you're applying for, and that you're not chasing a fantasy of the bar, but engaging with the reality of it. Now, unlike walking into court, minis do have a gatekeeper. You have to apply, and they can be extremely competitive, especially at the well-known sets. So let me give you some real guidance on landing them. First, research properly. Don't just fire off the same application to 50 chambers. Look at the chambers in the practice areas you're actually interested in, and approach the mini-pupillage application like a pupillage application. They are so competitive, even probably more competitive than pupillage, so it needs the attention that it deserves. You need to look at chambers in their practice areas that you're actually interested in, understand what they do, and target the ones that actually interest you, because they can tell an application or an applicant that has no interest in them a mile off. So quality over quantity. Second, apply early and pay attention to the process. Many chambers have specific application windows or deadlines or processes, and some run assessed mini-pupillages that feed into their pupillage selection process. Others are more informal, but follow the process that's set out in there or on their website. And find out how each one does it and respect it. Third, when you write to them, be specific. Why this chambers? Why you? Why now? A generic, I would like to gain experience at your chambers, gets lost in the pile. What value can you add to them? Having a mini-pupil shadow you is hard work when you're doing this job for a very short period of time. And the attention and time that a barrister gives to a mini-pupil is exceptional. So you need to understand that they are not offering mini-pupillages to do you a favour. They are offering mini-pupillages to people that they think will make it in this job. So asking for it as a favour and an application written in that way is not going to get you anywhere. You need something that shows you know who they are and why they specifically interest you. And that kind of thing gets read, how you can add value to them and why you are picking them. And then when you get one, and you will if you are persistent, make it count. This is where so much potential value gets left on the table, in my opinion, quite frankly. Be useful, be curious, read everything you're given thoroughly. Because you might be asked what you thought. You also might be asked, can you find me such and such document? Because the barrister is doing something else and they expect you to have read it. Also, ask thoughtful questions, but read the room. There's a time to ask and there's a time to quietly observe. Be pleasant to everybody, and I mean everybody. The clerks especially, because clerks matter enormously. And they notice how you treat people. And afterwards, thank the people who hosted you properly, daily in writing. A handwritten thank you letter will go a long way in the legal profession. A pupillage isn't just a few days of experience. It's the start of a relationship with the SEP chambers, and how you conduct yourself can leave an impression, and first impressions matter, and they last long after you've left. You treat every mini as if it's a very long, very gentle interview, because in a sense, it is. Next, marshalling, which is one of those things that sounds obscure, but is absolute gold. So stay with me. Marshalling is, put simply, shadowing a judge. You spend time, usually a day or a few days, sitting with the judge as they hear the cases, observing everything from the other side of the bench, and crucially, getting to talk to them about it, about their perspective, about what they think works, about what they think doesn't. The view from the bench is something almost nothing else can give you. Because when you're marshalling, you're not just watching the advocates perform, you're seeing the cases the way the person making the decision sees them. And it is different. I can't explain it. It's different. You start to understand what actually persuades a judge, what irritates them, what lands and what falls flat. That is invaluable experience and knowledge when you're going into a pupillage interview. You see how decisions really are arrived at, and that makes you a hands-down better advocate. And then, and this is the magic of it, you can ask the judge directly. You can say, what were you thinking when the barrister did that? Or what were you thinking when the argument went that way? Did the argument work and what didn't? That is an extraordinary education in advocacy delivered by the very person advocates are trying to persuade. And think about what that does for your own advocacy. Once you've sat beside a judge and understand what they're looking for, what strong advocacy look like from where they sit, what they don't like, your own advocacy gets sharper almost automatically. Because now you're not guessing at what works. You've seen it from the inside. You know your audience in a way most aspiring barristers never do. That is an edge, and it's an edge you carry for the rest of your career. I did marshalling, and I can tell you from the heart, it was one of the most valuable experiences I was able to do. So how do you get it? You ask politely, and more often than you might feel comfortable with. Now, marshalling opportunities come through a few different routes. Your Inn of Court may run some marshalling schemes, so if you've joined an inn, you should look into what they might offer. Many universities have schemes or contacts. And you can genuinely write to your local courts or to judges directly, respectfully, explaining who you are and asking whether they might consider taking you on to marshalling. I have one motto in life: don't ask, don't get. And here's the thing, people find hard to believe until they try. Judges say yes more often than you'd expect them to. Many of them care deeply about the future of the profession and are quietly delighted to help a keen young person coming up that is applying some initiative. The worst thing that happens when you ask is that you get a no or no reply, and you're no worse off than before. But some of those asks turn into a yes, and a yes can be one of the most formative experiences of your entire legal career journey. So ask. The people who get marshal aren't luckier than you, they're just the ones that asked and took the initiative to find out where those opportunities were. Now, let's talk about pro bono work. And I know it feels like a lot of getting a legal career is doing a lot of work for free. But that's just how the cookie crumbles, I'm afraid. But pro bono work and volunteering, this might be the most valuable category of all, and it's certainly the one that is closest to my heart. Here's the beautiful thing about pro bono. You can start doing actual real legal work, helping actual real people with actual real problems before a single person has hired you, and you don't have to wait till you're qualified to be useful. There are organisations right now that will train you and help you help people who genuinely need it. The Free Representation Unit, also known as FRU, is a wonderful example of that, where you can be trained to represent real clients at tribunals, actually standing up and advocating on somebody's behalf. University law clinics and community law clinics let students also give real advice under supervision. Things like the Citizens Advice Bureau need volunteers to help people navigate frontline legal and practical problems. There are real opportunities to do real legal work, and they're open to people who are just starting out. And think about what you build doing this. You build client care, learning how to sit with a real human being who is frightened or confused or needs your help, which is a skill no textbook can teach you. You build casework skills, actually handling matters from start to finish. You build advocacy if you're representing people. You build judgment, you build resilience, and the ability to apply law to messy real life facts instead of a tidy exam problem that doesn't have any real consequences. These are precisely the skills that chambers and solicitors firms are looking for when they assess candidates. And they are skills you just simply cannot fake. You cannot fast track them. You can only build them by doing the work. And pro bono lets you do that work. But here's what I love most about it and why I always come back to it. I still do pro bono work even now. It's not just a strategic move for your CV, although that is absolutely brilliant. It's genuinely good. You are helping somebody who needs help, often somebody who has nowhere else to turn, someone who cannot afford a lawyer and would otherwise face a very daunting, overwhelming and scary system alone. You are doing the very thing the profession exists to do. And doing it, you become the lawyer you're trying to be. You practice being that person. There's something powerful in that. You're not just performing, you're not just pretending, you're actually being part of service, and that changes you. It really, really does. And it comes through in how you talk about the law and why you want to do this or why you want to do that. You have real life lived experience that you can relate back to. And chambers and firms can tell the difference between somebody who did the pro bono as a tick box exercise and somebody who did it and cared. Be the second one. It's better for your application, it's better for your soul, and it's better for the person that you help. Everybody wins. And I can't think of a purer example of doing well by doing good. Right. So let's say you take all of this on board. You go to court, you sign up to temp and land a mini or land a marshalling, you volunteer, fantastic, great, love it for you. But I have to tell you something that a lot of people learn too late, and I don't want you to be one of them. Getting the experience is only half the job. The other half is actually what wins the pupillage, what wins the training contract, and that is being able to articulate what that experience taught you. And if you skip that half, you can do all the work experience in the world and still fall flat when it matters. So Let me explain what I mean. I've seen genuinely brilliant candidates, people who did impressive, valuable work experience, completely waste it because when it came to the application, all they could write was, I completed a mini-pupillage at such and such chambers. So what? So did hundreds of other applicants. The experience itself, just listed, is worth almost nothing on the page. What's worth everything is the reflection, what you actually saw, what it actually taught you, what you do differently, what you do the same, how it maps onto the specific qualities and competencies that chambers and firms are actually assessing. That's what separates you from the person who did the same mini and just listed it. The experience is the raw material. Your reflection on it is the finished product. And what most people hand in the raw material and wonder why it didn't land. Wonder, I've done all this experience. Why am I not getting anywhere? So here's what I want you to do. And it's simple, but you have to actually do it. Keep a record. Easy, very, very easy to do, but also very easy not to do. If you keep a record, you have a bank of experience that you can come back to in years' time. Because let me tell you, you might think that you will remember that experience, but you do not. So every single piece of experience you gather, log it, the date, the place, what you did. Then, and this is the important bit, reflect on it in writing whilst it's still fresh in your mind. What did this teach me? What did I notice? Specifics. What surprised me? What skill did it build? How does it connect to what chambers want? How does it connect to what type of barrister you want to be? And do this the same day if you possibly can, because I promise you the details do fade astonishingly fast. That vivid observation you had watching a cross-examination, the specific question that was asked and the response that was received, the specific thing that the judge said to you while marshalling, the moment a client thanked you, 6 months later, 12 months later, 5 years later, at application time, it is a complete blur. And you'll be sitting there trying to squeeze a compelling paragraph out of a fuzzy memory, not being able to remember. But when you have something to go back to, and that rejigs and triggers the memory, you can then talk about that fluently in an interview, and that comes across much more persuasive than very vague, fuzzy memories. Because if you capture it the same day, it's all there, rich and specific and ready to use. Your future self sitting down to write those applications will be so deeply grateful to present you for keeping that record. It's one of the highest return habits in this whole process. This, by the way, is exactly why I built the evidence log into my application tracker, because I saw so many people gathering experience and then losing the value of it. A place to log it, reflect and map it onto the competencies so that when the application season comes, you're not scrambling to remember, you're just drawing on a rich, organised record of everything you've done and learned. Show, don't tell. Anyone can tell chambers they're committed. Your evidence captured, reflected on, specifics is what shows them, and showing is what gets believed. That is the persuasiveness. And I want to get personal for a moment because I've given you a lot of routes and I don't want it to feel like theory handed down from somebody who had it easy. I didn't have it easy. I've spoken before about where I started, council school, no connections, no famous name, no family lawyer, young mother, non-conventional route into law, and doing a huge amount at once just to keep my head above the water. And when I looked at the path to the bar, I felt exactly what you might be feeling now, that everyone else seemed to have their shit together. They seemed to have this network, this head start, this smooth run of opportunities, and I was on the outside with my nose against the glass. And do you know what changed it? Not a lucky break, not somebody swooping in to rescue me. It was the day I stopped waiting to be chosen and started treating my experience as my responsibility. I stopped thinking, why won't anybody give me a way in? And started thinking, right, where are the doors that are already open? How do I walk through them? How can I think outside the box? I did the unglamorous things. I said yes to work that wasn't prestigious. I said yes to work that was quite frankly tedious, but it put me nearer the law. And I went above and beyond. I gathered experience wherever I could find it. I embarrassingly put myself out there into varying humbling positions, all in the cracks of a life that was already full and brimming. And I wrote down what each experience taught me in a spreadsheet so that I could use it later. None of it was dramatic. It was a series of small, deliberate, slightly uncomfortable steps that nobody clapped for at the time, that nobody cared about, nobody saw. And I want you to hear this because it's the whole reason I do what I do now. If I could build a way in from where I started with what I was juggling, then the specific circumstances you think are holding you back are almost certainly not the barrier you think that they are. The barrier is almost never your background. The barrier is the belief that you have to wait. The belief that you don't have in yourself, the belief that you think you cannot do it is what's holding you back. Drop that belief now, and the doors start appearing everywhere because they were there always. I'm not special. I just stopped waiting. And you can do that today too. I've given you the big 5: court visits, temping, minis, marshalling, and pro bono. And honestly, if you do those, you're going to be miles ahead of everybody else. But I want to quickly widen that picture because there are other doors worth knowing about, and one of them might be the perfect fit for you. The first is your Inn of Court. If you're serious about the bar, you'll join one of the 4 inns, and I'd urge you to see your inn as far more than an administrative box to tick. The inns run schemes, talks, advocacy workshops, dinners, mentoring, marshalling opportunities, and they exist in large part to support the people exactly like you coming through the profession from the junior end. Many of them have specific outreach programs, support programs for students from non-traditional backgrounds, and scholarships too to help you fund the bar. Engage with your inn properly. Turn up to things and it becomes a source of experience, contacts and opportunity that a lot of applicants completely underuse. It's one of the most welcoming doors there is, and it's practically designed to be walked through. The second is mooting and debating. Now, this isn't work experience in the classic sense, but it is experience of advocacy, and it's brilliant for building the exact skills you will be assessed on. Mooting is essentially a mock legal argument. Most universities, many external organisations run competitions. If you get a chance to moot, absolutely take it, because it teaches you to construct an argument, think on your feet, handle questions from a judge, and hold your nerve. And those are the very, very muscles you need. Debating does something similar, and the beauty is that these are often right there at your university, accessible and free, and open to anybody willing to have a go. If standing up and arguing terrifies you, that's the precise reason why you should be doing it, because the more you take yourself out of the comfort zone, the more confident you get, because that fear only shrinks with practice, and better to practice now in a moot than later in court when it really matters. And the third is legally adjacent work. And I want you to think broadly here. You don't build relevant skills in obviously legal jobs if you've worked in any role that involved dealing with people, handling responsibility, managing difficult situations, paying attention to detail, meeting deadlines, or advocating for someone. That is transferable, and it can be framed as relevant. The retail job where you calmed an angry customer taught you client care under pressure. The role where you had to juggle competing demands taught you the organisation this profession runs on. Don't dismiss existing experience just because it didn't happen in a courtroom or a legal setting. Learn to see the transferable skills inside it and learn to articulate them. Some of the most compelling application answers that I've seen drew on experience that had absolutely nothing to do with law on the surface, but everything to do with the qualities that a bar needs. And the fourth is networking, which I know is a word that makes a lot of people cringe, me included. So let me reframe it. Networking is not schmoozing or being fake. It's just talking to people who are further along than you and being genuinely curious about their path. Go to talks, ask questions, connect with barristers, connect with aspiring barristers, follow the conversations online, join in thoughtfully, reach out politely and specifically to people whose journey actually interests you, not asking them to hand you anything, just asking for a little insight or advice. Most people in this profession remember how hard it was to break in, and a lot of them are surprisingly willing to help someone who asks well and clearly cares. You're not being a nuisance by asking, and if they don't have the time to respond, they won't. You're just doing what the people who get in have always done. Now, before I send you off to start, I need to say something honest about the emotional side of this, because I'd be doing you a disservice if I made it all sound easy. You're going to face rejection. You'll send emails that get no reply. You'll apply for minis and not get them. You'll feel at times like you're shouting into the void, doing everything right and getting nothing back. And in those moments, the old story creeps back in. The one that says, well, maybe the door isn't really unlocked. Maybe it's locked specifically just for you. Maybe you're just not the one that's cut out for this. And I want to inoculate you against that story right now before it arrives, so you recognise it for what it actually is when it comes. Rejection at this stage is not, and I repeat for the bitches at the back, is not a verdict on your worth or your future self. It is simply part of the game. It is simply part of the process. Not every court visit will be electrifying. Not every email gets a yes. Not every application lands. The people who make it are not the ones who never got rejected. They are the ones that kept going after they did. Persistence beats resistance. Persistence is not a personality trait. You're either born with it or not. It is a choice that you make again each time you get knocked back. To send the next email anyway. Catch-22 doesn't only test whether you're clever enough or connected enough. It quietly tests whether you'll keep trying handles after a few of them don't open. Most people stop. If you simply don't stop, you separate yourself from the majority of the people. And that feeling of not being good enough, the imposter feeling that so many aspiring barristers carry, especially those of us who came from outside the traditional path, don't let it make your decisions for you. It is a big, fat lie. It tells you you don't belong before you've even tried. And if you listen, you'll disqualify yourself from opportunities that were genuinely available to you. And everyone feels it. The barristers you admire felt it. Many of them still do. Feeling like an imposter is not evidence that you are one. It is just a feeling, and you can act well in spite of it. Send the email while you feel unsure. Walk into the court while your heart is pounding. Do the brave thing scared. That's what everyone who's ever made it actually did. So be kind to yourself through this process and be persistent anyway. The two things aren't in conflict. Treat yourself gently and keep going. That combination, softness with yourself and stubbornness towards the goal, is what carries people through the long, unglamorous middle of this journey, where most of the work happens and nobody is watching. And before I give you your action steps, I want to zoom out, because I don't want you to think this is only about padding out a CB. It's about something much, much bigger. If you understand that, you'll approach all of it differently. The first thing this experience builds is conviction. Right now, if you're early in this, a lot of your desire to be a barrister might be based on an image, an idea, something you've seen on television or imagined in your head. And that's fine as a starting point, but an image is fragile. And interviewers can feel when someone is chasing a fantasy. When you go and sit in a real courtroom, when you help a real client through a law clinic, when you shadow a real barrister on a mini, your desires stop being an image and become a conviction rooted in some reality. You have seen the actual job, the difficult bits, as well as the exciting bits, and you still want it. That is a completely different kind of motivation. It carries you through the hard parts of the journey, and it radiates out of you in an interview because quite frankly, it's real. And the second thing is it builds stories, and stories are what win applications and interviews. Nobody is persuaded by, I am hardworking and committed. Everybody is persuaded by a specific, vivid account of the time you sat with a frightened client and helped them understand their options, or the cross-examination you watched that changed how you think about advocacy, or the moment marshalling when a judge explained why an argument had specifically failed. Every piece of experience you gather is a story bank you're building, a collection of real concrete moments you can draw on when somebody asks you why you want this or what you learned or how you handled. People without experience have to speak in vague generalities. You'll be able to speak in specifics, and specifics are what land. The third thing it builds, and maybe the most important, is confidence. The real kind, not the borrowed confidence of a pep talk, but the deep confidence that comes from having actually done the things and being able to speak about them afterwards. Every court you walk into, every email you send, every placement you complete, every client you help adds to a quiet internal certainty that you belong here and that you're not a fraud waiting to be found out. Experience is how you convince yourself, not just Chambers, that this is yours. And a candidate who genuinely believes they belong because they've earned that belief through action is a completely different proposition from one who's hoping nobody notices their doubt. They notice. You build that belief the same way you build everything worthwhile, by doing the thing again and again and again until the evidence is undeniable. When you go and gather this experience, know that you're not just collecting lines for a form. You're not just ticking boxes. You're building your conviction, your stories, and your confidence all at once. You're becoming somebody who has actually been in the rooms, done the work, and knows from the inside that this is where you belong. That person doesn't have to perform belonging at an interview. They just are it. And that's what all of this is really for. So let me pull this together and let me make it real, because I don't want this to be an hour of interesting ideas that you nod along to and then never action. The action is the most important thing. And I want it to be the week your work experience actually starts to mean something. Here's what I want you to do this week. This week, pick one thing from this episode, just one, only one, and take a single concrete step towards it. Don't try and do it all at once. That's overwhelming and you'll just freeze and then you won't do any of it. Just one. If you've never been to court, look up your nearest Crown Court or Magistrates Court and put a morning in your diary and go and sit in the public gallery. That's it. That's the whole step, and it's free and nobody can stop you. Or if money and experience both feel quite tight at the minute, spend half an hour this week finding and registering with a legal temping agency. Or look up the free representation unit or your local law clinic or citizens advice and find out how to get involved. Or draft a short specific email asking for a mini-pupillage or marshalling opportunity and, actually send it. Pick one, take one step this week, nothing more, nothing less. Because here is the truth, that underneath everything I've said today, the catch-22 is real. But it is not a wall. It is a door that most people never try because they are waiting for permission that is never going to come. The people who get through it are simply the ones who stopped waiting and started trying every goddamn handle. And every single route I've given you today is a handle you can try this week without anybody's blessing. Free court visits, paid temping, minis, marshalling, pro bono, and the habit of capturing it all. So when it counts, you have what matters. None of it requires you to have already had any experience. All of it gives you that experience to get that experience. That's how you break the catch-22. Not by solving a riddle, not by refusing to stand outside the room waiting to be let in, and instead walking around and finding the doors that are already open. You are more in control of this process than you've been led to believe. Nobody is going to hand you your legal career on a plate, but nobody can stop you building it either. One court visit, one placement, one active service at a time. So go and start. Try one handle this week and then another next week and keep going, keep gathering, keep reflecting and watch what happens. You've got this. I believe in you. I'm cheering you on. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Now go get your experience and I'll see you on the next pod. If you don't follow me on social media, the links are in the show notes below. Also, check out my stand store for the application tracker so that you have somewhere to keep all your experience logged in one place. Till next time, bye.